IbramXKendi, Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America. And is Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America, IbramXKendi charts the progression of racism in America, which has pervaded the nation's history since its inception. By examining the lives and ideas of prominent historical figures, Kendi reveals three distinct approaches to race relations: segregationist, assimilationist, and anti-racist. Through a comprehensive exploration of America's past, this book offers an insightful analysis of the various justifications for racism and the ways in which it has been challenged and reinvented throughout history.
The Battle of Segregation, Assimilation, and Antiracism. Despite the dream of a post-racial America, the reality is that African Americans still face institutional inequalities. Systemic economic oppression of black people for centuries has led to 13 times more wealth gap between white and black households in America, and young black men are over 20 times more likely to be killed by police than their white counterparts. The racism and inequality are evident since the beginning of American history. The battle between segregationists, assimilationists, and anti-racists characterizes American history and its racism. Segregationists consider black people's apparent social and economic inequalities their fault. The anti-racists, on the other hand, recognize the artificial construct of race and oppose any form of discrimination surrounding it. Assimilationists want to have it both ways, agreeing with anti-racists that discrimination has held black people back, while also subscribing to the racist idea that black people need to try a little bit harder to overcome inequality. The battle is ongoing, with modern thought leaders shrouding their racist ideas in assimilationist and even anti-racist language. The fantasy of race. Europeans invented the concept of race out of colonial self-interest. The idea that one racial group is inferior to another was created after racist policies were established, not before. The notion of distinct human races such as white and black emerged only when Europeans started colonizing Africa. Portugal pioneered anti-black racism by suggesting that Africans were in need of civil and religious salvation, in the form of slavery. European scholars debated the causes of their invented concept of black savagery. Finally, in 1606, the word race was coined to define this alleged difference. America's first assimilationist. The book explores how Puritans in America created a racial divide by justifying enslaving people in their colonies using a rich roster of racist ideas. It was discovered that a divide-and-conquer strategy of relying on black labor was the best way to prevent joint revolts of poor white servants, Native American captives, and enslaved Africans. Cotton Mather, America's first well-known assimilationist, preached that black people could become white in their souls if they were converted to Christianity, which was embraced due to his obsession with a scientific ranking system of human races. The book also highlights how a few religious leaders started using biblical arguments to pioneer abolitionist and anti-racist ideas. Thomas Jefferson and the European Enlightenment's influence on slavery in America. Born during the European Enlightenment, Thomas Jefferson incorporated the era's racist abolitionist ideas into his political career. Although most Enlightenment thinkers were opposed to slavery, they had no direct economic stake in American slavery. Jefferson embodied the hypocritical anti-slavery stance of his time while being raised by enslaved black people on his father's plantation. He endorsed the new anti-English anti-slavery sentiment that was spreading through the colonies. The introduction of water power and the purchase of Louisiana in 1803, however, increased American cotton production and made slavery a massive business for Southern plantation owners and Northern investors, causing assimilationist ideas to fade into the background. The dual persona of an abolitionist. William Lloyd Garrison, a renowned abolitionist of the 1820s, founded the anti-slavery oppositional American Anti-Slavery Society in 1833. Garrison successfully fueled the abolitionist movement and triggered the circulation of over 1 million pamphlets, calling for immediate emancipation. However, Garrison's upbringing during that time made him a product of his environment, leading him to believe in dangerous racist ideas like the uplift suasion myth and painting black people as innately docile. Despite the segregationists' efforts against the abolitionist movement, abolitionist Northerners' pressure shifted the balance of power, leading to Union's permanent end to slavery and retaliation from Southern segregationists in calls for secession from the Union. The legacy of slavery. The abolition of slavery was only the beginning of the journey toward racial equality. In the aftermath of the Civil War, white Southerners sought to reconstruct an updated form of slavery through the use of oppressive labor contracts, black codes, Jim Crow laws, and violent tactics. By resisting black voting rights and enforcing white supremacy, they fabricated a new myth of reverse discrimination that further entrenched racial discrimination across America. W.E.B. Du Bois and the evolution of his activism. Civil rights activist W.E.B. Du Bois spent his life fighting against racism and violence during the Reconstruction era. He co-founded the influential National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, which addressed the intersection of racial discrimination and social justice. Despite his contributions to the movement, Du Bois sometimes veered into problematic territory, overemphasizing certain qualities of black people. However, the Great Depression changed his outlook, and he began to challenge his assimilationist ideas. By the end of the crisis, Du Bois had become a true anti-racist and a Marxist anti-racist. The Civil Rights Movement in the aftermath of World War II. Learn how the two world wars impacted American society and brought about a new consciousness of racial inequality, leading to the birth of the Civil Rights Movement. The two world wars of the 20th century not only changed global politics but also had a significant impact on American society. The mass movement of black people from the rural South to northern cities during the Great Migration was spurred by labor shortages during the wars. This migration of over 6 million black Americans exercised their freedom and pursued a new life of opportunity in the North. The experiences of black American soldiers during World War II brought about a new consciousness of racial inequality, as they were sold the idea that victory in defeating fascism abroad would end racism and its attendant violence at home through the W.E.B campaign. The fact that this pledge was not fulfilled ignited a renewed fight for equality in America. The Civil Rights Movement was born out of this fight. In the 1950s, the strategic boycotts, sit-ins, and marches of civil rights activists forced a public conversation on racial justice. Brown versus the Board of Education in 1955, a landmark decision, finally ruled that segregation in schools was unconstitutional. The civil rights movement gained momentum in the early 1960s, and presidential hopeful John F. Kennedy took it up to appeal to liberal voters. Kennedy's advocacy ultimately culminated in the monumental Civil Rights Act of 1964, which legally ended racist discrimination in the public sphere, as well as the Voting Rights Act of 1955, which addressed the racist tactics of voter suppression. However, the progress made was met with racist retaliation from many white people across the U.S. The laws passed under Kennedy meant that racial discrimination was officially over, but this made it easier for assimilationist white people to reason that any inequality that remained was due to a supposed ineptitude on the part of black people. The lesson here is that the advances of the civil rights movement opened the doors for more subtle racist ideas. The pressure for urbanization and the anti-racist momentum in the aftermath of World War II brought about a new political consciousness that ultimately birthed the fight for racial equality. Angela Davis and intersectional antiracism. As the civil rights movement progressed, many young anti-racists felt that nonviolent action wasn't enough to end structural inequality. This led to the Black Power movement and intersectional activism spearheaded by Angela Davis. Davis tied the anti-racist struggle to feminist, queer, and anti-war thought, which led to more non-black people taking up the cause. Although wins were achieved, politicians like Nixon and Reagan ushered in a new model of implementing racist policies. Davis became the principal voice opposing these latest tactics and a firm advocate for prison abolition. Both Republicans and Democrats learned from history that it was easier to sell racist ideas to poor white people than to devise programs that would benefit poor white and black Americans alike. The persistence of racist ideas in America. Racism still lingers in America despite efforts to phrase it appropriately for public consumption. The book The Bell Curve validated the racist practice of comparing intelligence across different races using standardized tests, and this became a justification for the No Child Left Behind Act. Barack Obama's successful presidency did not herald the end of racism. Instead, he used assimilationist tactics and blamed black people for their inequality. Racist policies inspire racist ideas, not vice versa, and uplifting individual black people only leads to racist backlash. In power, racists package their ideas in sophisticated ways that benefit white people, obscuring the fact that an equal society would benefit poor and middle-income whites more. Challenging racism requires opposing racist policies and pushing for anti-racist ones.
As Kendi illustrates, racist ideas have been a through line in American history, being continuously reimagined and justified by powerful individuals and political structures. Throughout time, figures have emerged who champion either segregationist, assimilationist, or anti-racist ideologies. While progress has been made in battling racism, as demonstrated by the civil rights movement and Barack Obama's presidency, subtle and overt forms of racist ideas still persist. It is crucial to hold those in power accountable and advocate for anti-racist policies in order to break the cycle of racist ideas, and pave the way for a more equitable society that benefits everyone.